Today I'll be speaking about an old-time Colombo captain, Dominic "Donnie Shacks" Montemarano. And Donnie Shacks goes back to the days in South Brooklyn with the Profaci family. Back then, the Gallo brothers and boss Joe Profaci began to have a lot of trouble and were bumping heads. By 1961, a full-fledged war broke out between the two factions. Donnie Shacks remained on the Profaci side, and Carmine Persico initially supported his friends, the Gallos, but would ultimately betray them and switch sides. He even tried to garrote and kill Larry Gallo, which was the reason why he acquired his nickname, the Snake. In the early hours of January 5th, 1962, Persico, Donnie Shacks, and two associates were at the Copacabana nightclub. The Copacabana was located on East 60th Street in Manhattan. After first opening in 1940, Frank Costello had a piece of the business, but throughout the years, Joe Gallo would lay claim to it. On this specific night, Persico and his crew spotted Sidney Slater, who was Joe Gallo's front man and someone he was allegedly extorting. Slater first met Gallo shortly after Albert Anastasia was killed on October 25, 1957, at the Park Sheraton Hotel. Apparently, after the murder, Slater asked Gallo who he thought killed Anastasia, and Gallo responded by saying, "You can call us the Barbershop Quintet." After spotting Slater at the Copacabana, Donnie Shacks and Persico attacked him by punching and kicking him, and also hitting him with a metal hook, which almost took Slater's eye out. Following the assault, the police caught up with Donnie Shacks, who was driving a 1960 black Cadillac. After a search, he was found to have a .38 on him. As for the assault, Persico received a year, and Donnie Shacks somehow had a suspended sentence. When Joe Gallo appeared before the Senate committee that was investigating rackets in 1958 and chaired by Robert Kennedy, it was a big media event. Meanwhile, according to Gallo, when he first met Kennedy, the very first thing Kennedy said to him was that if he helped him get Hoffa, he'd never want for nothing. But Gallo basically told Kennedy to go to hell, and that he'd be taking the fifth. This infuriated Kennedy, who told Gallo, "You're not so tough, I'd like to fight you myself," in which Kennedy came behind his desk and took off his suit jacket. Gallo calmly looked at him and said, "I don't fight," and he reached in his pocket and pulled out a mezuzah, which is a small metal object with scrolls inside that Jewish people usually hang above a door, and this item was given to him by Sidney Slater. Gallo had later said that he really wanted to use it on Kennedy's head. At some point, Slater began providing law enforcement with information on the Gallo crew. And on April 3rd, 1963, Donnie Shacks and an associate were arrested outside the Commercial Bank of North America on Fifth Avenue. Detectives from the Safe and Loft Squad found a mask, sunglasses, and handcuffs on Donnie Shacks, and a handgun on his associate. Both Donnie Shacks and Paul Campanale were spotted peeking in the bank's window. Coincidentally, Slater had an account at this particular branch. When he heard about the arrest, he told the police they weren't there to rob the bank. On October 27, 1964, Persico, Donnie Shacks, and 30 others were arrested for their involvement in a policy business. That same year, Profaci family had a newly appointed boss, Joe Colombo. Thereafter, the family was referred to as the Colombo family. In March of 1969, Donnie Shacks was also arrested and indicted for loan sharking. At this point in time, he had been arrested 6 times. And by the 1970s, most likely in 76 or 77, he was inducted into the Colombo family. And as most of us know, a family that Carmine Persico became the boss of. By the 1980s, Donnie Shacks was a captain in the family and ran a large loan sharking business out of his social club in Brooklyn. On June 13, 1983, a commission meeting took place at the Body Restaurant and Supply Company located at 234 Bowery in Manhattan. Representing the Colombos were Jerry Lang and Donnie Shacks. And before the FBI caused the commission members to flee, one of the items of discussion was concrete projects in New York City. At the time, 4 out of the 5 families made what was called the Concrete Club. In October 1984, Donnie Shacks, along with Persico, was indicted, but they received word of the pending indictment and avoided arrest. On February 15, 1985, at 4:55 p.m., over 20 FBI agents and members of the Organized Crime Task Force surrounded a house in Wantagh, Long Island. They placed a call to the house phone and told Persico that the house was surrounded and that he should come out. Moments later, both Persico and Donnie Shacks backed out of the house with their hands on their heads. The house belonged to Persico's cousin and her husband, Fred DeChristopher, who was an insurance salesman. Persico's cousin happened to be the sister of Andy Mush. And unbeknownst to Persico, DeChristopher had been an FBI informant for several years and had given up Persico's whereabouts for a $50,000 reward. In fact, just 3 months into his marriage, DeChristopher went to the FBI and provided information on Andy Mush and Persico's brother Allie Boy. The government charged 14 members of the Colombo family in 1985 with a superseding indictment. Persico, Donnie Shacks, and members and associates were charged for numerous crimes, including extortion of the construction industry, loan sharking, narcotics, gambling, and murder. Donnie Shacks and Ralphie Scopo were both severed from that case. During Persico's trial, he acted as his own lawyer. When the government called DeChristopher to the stand, Persico began his cross-examination. "You helped me when I came to your house." "I did," replied DeChristopher. Persico added, "You couldn't buy socks," insinuating that DeChristopher gave him up just for the reward money. DeChristopher then said to Persico, "You'd like to see me down the sewer. Wouldn't you like to see me down the sewer altogether?" But Persico responded, "I don't think the judge will permit me to answer that question," which surprisingly had the jury laughing. Let me quickly mention the super thanks icon, and I'd like to thank all of you who've used it, as it helps the podcast. Also, please remember to hit the like button. Apparently, while on the lam and living in DeChristopher's house, Persico stayed in a room in their attic. And one day he allegedly told DeChristopher that should he die of natural causes, he wanted to be buried near a pond in their yard, and that DeChristopher should tell the FBI every few months that he's seen Persico in different places. Persico wanted to keep the FBI busy looking for him for years. But at the time, little did Persico know, he was telling this to someone who was already speaking to the FBI. As the saying goes, the man who represents himself has a fool for a client. Carmine Persico was convicted and received a 100-year sentence. Donnie Shacks would receive 18 years in his case, but would only serve 11 years. Following his release, he relocated to California, where he held large Monday Night Football parties and invited players and coaches, including Dallas Cowboy quarterback Troy Aikman. These parties would lead to an investigation involving point shaving. While in California, Donnie Shacks was tied to actress Elizabeth Hurley, who he met through her ex-husband, Steve Bing. In 2003, a Los Angeles County judge sentenced Donnie Shacks to 4 years for an October 3, 2001 incident where his 27-year-old live-in girlfriend claimed that he assaulted her. On January 10, 2021, Dominic Montemarano died from pandemic-related symptoms, and he was 82 years old at the time.